Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursdays Live with Chug. Each week, we cover pressing topics that matter to you and your business. I'm Arianna Gonzalez from Chug, attorneys and CPAs tuning in from our San Diego office. Please join me in welcoming partner and attorney Diya Mathews and immigration lead Gilyana Dzhambulaeva from our Edison, New Jersey office. Hi there, Diya and Gilyana, and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for being here. For today's topic, we will be answering all of your pressing questions on PERM recruitment. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started, this conversation is for informational purposes only. It does not create an attorney-client relationship. So if you have questions, please email us anytime at info@chug.com so we can help you out. Now let's get right into it. Diya, can you tell me what is the purpose of a permanent labor certification issued by the Department of Labor?
Yes, absolutely. So, a permanent labor certification, and we sometimes refer to it as just PERM, that's issued by the Department of Labor, and it allows an employer to hire a foreign worker permanently in the United States. So, the DOL, the Department of Labor, must certify that there are no other US workers who are able, willing, qualified, and available to accept the job opportunity in that area of intended employment, and that the employment of the foreign worker will not adversely affect the wages and working conditions of US workers. So there is a process to be completed for it, and at the end, you get the permanent labor certification issued by the Department of Labor.
Now, Dia, oftentimes in this process, there's an I-140 petition involved. So in what cases is a certified labor certification application from the DOL not required before submitting an I-140 immigration petition to USCIS?
Right. So typically, there are two agencies involved in the process. The first is the permanent labor certification, which is through the Department of Labor. And after that is certified, you file the I-140 petition with the USCIS, which is a division of the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the PERM is not required for all employment based I-140 petitions. For example, if it's an EB1 petition, which can be based on extraordinary ability or outstanding professors and researchers, or for multinational managers. For those type of EB, employment-based petitions, you don't need a PERM. You don't involve the Department of Labor. But for the typical EB2 and EB3 petitions that are filed with the USCIS, that's where you need a PERM from the Department of Labor first.
Great information. Thank you for sharing that with us. Gilyana, can you talk about the three main steps involved in the PERM labor certification process?
Sure. So there are three main steps involved. The first step is filing the PWG, the prevailing wage determination with Department of Labor. The next step is conducting all required recruitment. And then the last step is filing the actual PERM application, Form 9089.
That's really good to know. So how long is the validity period of a certified labor certification application, and what happens if it's not submitted to USCIS within this period?
So the PERM certification has a validity period of 180 days and expires if not submitted to USCIS. So we need to make sure that our I-140 petition is filed before the certified PERM expires.
Understood. So there's a validity period of 180 days. Good to know. So Diya, why is it necessary for an employer to distinguish between non-professional and professional employment in the PERM recruitment process? Why does this matter so much?
Right. The general rule of thumb, I would say, is that if a position requires, if it typically requires a bachelor's degree, then you classify it as a professional position. And if it's a professional position, then there are additional requirements in terms of the recruitment efforts that need to be undertaken by the employer before you can get the PERM certified. So, but, um, uh, you know, the way to look at it is that the Department of Labor has assigned, or they have classified certain requirements in terms of training and education for each position. So a non-professional job typically will not require a bachelor's degree. The requirements for that position, according to the Department of Labor, would be less than a bachelor's degree, and you can probably qualify based on just experience and training. And so, typically, entry-level positions would also, sometimes they can be classified as non-professional. And again, as I said, the main difference is that you have less recruitment efforts that need to be undertaken for non-professional positions.
So you mentioned a certain level of education might be required for this. What is the minimum level of education typically required for a classified professional occupation?
Yeah. So usually it's a bachelor's degree. That is a minimal level of education that is required for a profession that's, for an occupation that is classified as being professional. However, the Department of Labor may categorize an open position as a professional occupation, whether or not the employer declares it to be. And again, going back to what I said, the forms of recruitment and the advertisement requirements are governed by what the Department of Labor typically classifies that occupation as.
So how exactly does the Department of Labor categorize an open post as a professional occupation? What does that look like?
Yeah. If the employer or the Department of Labor has set the minimum requirement for the position as a baccalaureate or a bachelor's degree, or in lieu of a bachelor's degree, they could say, willing to accept commensurate work experience. So those typically would be professional positions, and that's how you would categorize that as a professional occupation.
Understood, so they can use experience in place of that. Good to know. So, Gilyana, can you tell us what information must be included in a PERM recruitment advertisement, and why is it so important to ensure that the advertising appropriately educates candidates about the employment opportunity?
So the typical PERM recruitment ad should contain the following information: employer's name, employer's address, employer's contact information, and it should have a detailed description of job responsibilities, education and experience requirements. It can also have a work location and travel requirements, if any, and also a mode of application, how to submit a resume, whether by email or mailing the resume.
Understood. So they need the basics: name, address, contact info, where the work will be taking place, and how they can apply. Are salaries required to be mentioned in the Sunday advertisements? And if so, why? Why not? Why do we need to include this?
So the salaries need not to be included, but the employer must ensure that the advertising has a detailed description about the employment opportunity.
Understood. That's really good to know. Going into mandatory recruitment, Diya, what is the purpose of a job order placed by the U.S. employer with the state workforce agency, and how long must it run?
So, yeah, we typically call it the job order. And the job order is a mandatory form of recruitment in the context of PERM. It must be placed by the employer with the state workforce agency. So, each US state has its own state workforce agency, and they'll typically have a portal, so you can create an account for the employer and place the advertisement or the job order in the state workforce agency's portal. The job order needs to be pretty detailed. It has to give all the requirements, it has to talk sufficiently about the job opportunity and highlight all the essential features of the job opportunity. And it needs to run for at least 30 calendar days in a row. So usually the safe thing to do is run it for a little over 30 days. In some states, there's also a hold. The first few days, it's only open to veterans. For example, in Texas, I think in a couple of other states, they have these requirements that the job orders, initially will only be visible to certain select populations, and then it's open to the public, etc. So it's always best to run it for a few additional dates. And but yes, the minimum requirement is 30 calendar days.
Really good to know. 30 calendar days is the minimum. What are the requirements for the 2 advertisements that must be published in a general circulation newspaper, and what alternatives are available if the job is located in a rural location, for example?
Right. So you have to have 2 advertisements run in a general circulation newspaper on 2 Sundays. Um, so the thing to keep in mind is that the newspaper that you select is very important. It has to be the newspaper that is designed to reach the maximum number of applicants, right? So you look for the newspaper which has the widest circulation in the area of employment, and then you place 2 Sunday newspaper ads. Usually, with employers, they will publish them on consecutive Sundays, but under the regulations, there's really no need that there's no requirement that they have to actually be consecutive. But normally, we run them consecutive Sundays. Now, what content should these Sunday newspaper ads have? So obviously, they have to have the name of the employer. They have to have the address and contact information for the employer, a detailed enough or a description of the job duties that is detailed enough to identify the job opportunity. So it's not necessary that you have to give a very complete, the entire job description, but again, it has to be sufficiently detailed to identify the job opportunity. And this is very important. You also have to give the job's geographic location and any travel or relocation or telecommuting information as may be applicable to the job opportunity. And I think you also asked, what do we do when the job is located in an area where there is no Sunday newspaper? So sometimes with very rural areas in the United States, there is no Sunday newspaper. So in those cases, the employer can actually run the ad in a weekend edition. They would have to just denote in the PERM application that there is no Sunday newspaper for that area, and then give the information about the weekend edition of the newspaper that's available.
Wonderful information. Thank you for sharing that with us, Diya. Now, Diya, what is the purpose of the posting notice, and how long must it be posted at the employer's office?
Yes, the posting notice. Now that's, sometimes we refer to it as a notice of filing or the notice of job opportunity. So that's basically, we classify it amongst the recruitment efforts, but it's not really, strictly speaking, it's not really a recruitment. It's more like a notice to the existing employees at the employer, right? So it's basically to notify the employer's current employees that a labor certification application is being filed. And so there's different ways you can do it. The most common way of doing it is that you just post it. You just have a physical posting at the employer's office. If the employer typically sends out job posts by email, then you should also probably use the same method for the notice of filing. You can also use the intranet. And if there is a bargaining representative, there's a union, for example, then there's a different way of putting out the notice of filing. But yeah, essentially the notice of filing needs to be posted for at least 10 business days. So when we do the notice of filing, it's essential to see if there's any holidays, federal holidays or weekends that fall in between. So because it has to be 10 business days, right? And so once it's done, then the employee takes it down, signs it, and keeps a copy. And that's goes into the audit file.
That's really great information. Now, Gilyana, can you tell us how many additional recruitment methods must an employer choose from the available options? And can you share with us what are some of these options?
Yes. So in addition to the mandatory recruitment, the employer must choose 3 of the 10 other ways of recruitment. And the available 10 options for employers are job fairs, employer's website, job search website other than the employers, on-campus recruiting, trade or professional organizations, private employment firms, employee referral program, campus placement office, local and ethnic newspapers, radio or TV advertisement.
Okay, wow. So we have quite a few options, and you said they have to choose they have to choose up to 3 of them, or at minimum 3 of them.
Yeah, at least 3 of them, but employer can also decide to do more, maybe 4.
Wonderful, really good to know. Those are great options to consider too of where to post these jobs. So what are the extra recruitment stages sometimes referred to as optional, and what is the legal requirement for these advertisements? Do we have any information on that?
So these extra recruitment steps are sometimes called as optional. However, it's the phrasing is a bit tricky because employer is required by law to pick at least 3 extra methods of advertising, and because all of these ads must have the same information as Sunday ads, so most companies just use the same text in all of their perm ads.
Good to know, so they can just use the same content across the board. So, Dia, let's get into requirements for non-professional careers. What are the mandatory recruitment steps for non-professional positions, and how do they differ from those for professional positions?
Right. So the main difference is that if it's a non-professional occupation, then you don't have to do what Gilyana explained just now, as the optional recruitment steps, right? So for non-professional positions, the employer only needs to do the 3 mandatory steps, which is first would be the notice of posting or the notice of filing. Um, Second would be the job order with the state workforce agency, and then the last would be the Sunday newspaper ads. So those 3 steps should be undertaken for non-professional careers.
That's good to know. So, regarding the purpose of recruitment, what is the purpose of the recruitment process in the PERM labor certification process, and how does it comply with the DOL PERM recruitment requirements?
That's a great question. So the purpose of recruitment, right, is to test the labor market. As we started at the beginning, as we discussed at the beginning of this discussion, um, the DOL's process is to certify that there is no qualified US worker. And based on that, the employer is allowed to sponsor a green card for a foreign worker, right? So, in order to test the labor market and to be able to make the determination that there is no suitably qualified US worker, these recruitment steps have to be done in good faith. The Department of Labor has particular standards and regulations that govern the recruitment steps. And so, that's why we have the combination of the mandatory recruitment and then the additional steps. And Department of Labor has also set the content requirements for these ads. So, granted, these regulations were written a very long time ago, and so some of these steps might not really make sense in today's world. For example, nobody really looks at the Sunday newspaper ad classified section for a job these days, right? You would more likely be looking at Indeed or LinkedIn and things like that. But this is how the regulations were drafted, so employers are required to comply with these.
That's very interesting. So, Gilyana, can you tell us what information must be included in a recruitment report, and why is it important to document all resumes received and the reasons they were rejected?
Yes, so keeping recruitment report is very important, and it must contain the name of the beneficiary, the perm position, the SOC code, and also employer's name and address. The recruitment report must list all recruitment that has been conducted for each case. And it should also document all recruitment results, such as resumes received, number of candidates interviewed, and the reasons why they were rejected. So the reasons must be valid, that stating that candidates either were not authorized to work in US, or they did not meet the required education and experience.
And what happens if the DOL issues a PERM audit? How is the employer supposed to respond to this?
Yes, so sometimes Department of Labor issues a PERM audit that we have to respond within 30 days, and we have to submit detailed recruitment report and all actual proof of recruitment that was conducted for that case that was audited. And we should also include all supporting documentation that the recruitment was done properly and according to all DOL requirements.
Wow, that's really good to know. So we have 30 days to respond if the DOL issues a PERM audit. Now, regarding supervised recruitment, Diya, what is supervised recruitment and how does the employer submit a draft of proposed advertisements to the certifying officer for approval?
Oh, that is something that probably requires a 1 hour discussion in itself. But supervised recruitment is, think of it as next level audit, right? And I think each time we see an email from Department of Labor for supervised recruitment, we are like, yeah, damn. So it is a lot of work, and we pretty much have to be prepared to pay a lot of attention and time to responding to the supervised recruitment. And I immediately drop everything else. I contact the employer and say, we have to get started right away. So supervised recruitment is basically when a Department of Labor chooses your PERM application for enhanced review. And so there are a number of triggers usually for it. It could be that maybe as an employer, you're filing a lot of applications, or maybe it could be just something else. But there are certain identified triggers for supervised recruitment. And with supervised recruitment, Department of Labor um, supervises the recruitment. So in the normal process, employer controls the recruitment. All the applications go to the employer directly, and Department of Labor will just take the employer's word for it as to why people were disqualified and not selected. With supervised recruitment, on the other hand, all the applications actually go to the Department of Labor, and then Department of Labor will send it to the employer for screening. So that way they have a track of how many applications were actually received. Department of Labor will also tell the employer which specific medium to advertise in. It could be, it could be Monster, it could be Indeed.com, it could be a number of websites. So employer is then obligated to run the ads on all these different portals. And then usually you will get a lot of applications. And so, then the employer has to go through the process of reviewing, vetting these applications and making a determination. The timelines are also very strict. So, the ads have to be run in a certain time frame, and then you have to get back to Department of Labor with the recruitment results. So they send all the instructions. Employer has to review all of them very carefully and then make sure that they are done.
So if we are one of the lucky ones that's chosen for enhanced review, what is the role of the certifying officer in reviewing the recruitment information and recruitment report to grant or deny the application?
Yeah, that is close. Think of it as the employer actually working closely with the Department of Labor to run the ads. So when the employer places the ad for a supervised recruitment case, you first have the employer has to send a draft of the advertisement to the Department of Labor. Department of Labor will approve the advertisement. Sometimes they might issue some corrections or changes to the advertisement. And once the advertisement is approved, then as I said before, the DOL will send a list of publications where the advertisements must be placed. And all of this has to be done within a short time frame. So usually the time crunch is in getting these ads posted, on all these different platforms within the time stipulated by the Department of Labor. And then the employer must all the interview or review all the applications that come in as a result of the advertisement and provide a detailed recruitment report to the Department of Labor. And then DOL will review all the recruitment information along with the recruitment report and then decide whether to grant or deny the application. So it is a lot of work, but we have successfully responded to many notices of supervised recruitment.
Wow, that was all such great information. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Diya. We are almost out of time, but I do want to ask you one more question. Are there any timelines to be mindful of in this process? What does our audience need to know?
It is all about timelines. So the PERM process is nerve-wracking because of this, because every word in the PERM application, the advertisement is important, and so are the timelines, right? So let's just talk about some of the timelines to keep in mind. The first rule is that the PERM application must either be filed during the validity of the PWD, which is the prevailing wage determination, or the recruitment for the PERM application should be initiated during the validity of the PWD. So these are the rules governing the PWD itself and how the ads need to run in the the context of the PWD. The second is that the PERM application itself should be filed no later than 180 days from the date of the first recruitment. So, everything has to happen keeping these timelines in mind. Thank you.
Such great information, Diya. I appreciate you sharing all of your insights with us, and you as well, Gilyana. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insights on this topic. If you are watching this and have questions on PERM recruitment, please reach out to us at info@chig.com. We'd love to help you out. That is all we have time for today, so this does bring us to the end of our conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. A special thank you to you, Diya and Gilyana, for your time. To stay up to date, please subscribe and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send us an email anytime at info@chig.com. We would love to help you out. And make sure to join us back here next week for more pressing topics that truly matter to you and your business. Until next time, stay safe and take care, everyone. Thank you again for joining us.